Hey guys, welcome to the first ever episode of This Week in Health Tech. I'm covering a few stories that I thought were really interesting for folks who are building, operating, or investing in the nexus of healthcare and technology. Our first story this week, Medicare coverage of weight loss drugs. For the first time ever, Medicare beneficiaries can get coverage for weight loss drugs through the Medicare program. If you go back to 1990, there was a carve out in that initial Medicaid drug rebate program for what were called lifestyle drugs. And that covered everything from sexual dysfunction, fertility, cosmetic stuff, and included weight loss. And that carve out carried over in 2003 when Congress established Medicare Part D. To the credit of legislators at the time, we didn't really have weight loss drugs that worked. And now we do, right? Things have changed. GLP-1s clearly have shown the ability to drive real and sustained weight loss for patients who use them. KFF ran an analysis and found that something like 4 million patients on Medicare could be eligible based on the clinical criteria. How the program works is CMS is going to shell out $195 a month, and Medicare beneficiaries on the program will chip in $50 as a copay. So when you do the math, even if we don't get to full uptake on that clinically eligible population, this is like a multi-billion-dollar windfall for the drug makers.
Tell them to bring me my money. Yeah!
Now, my attention goes to a story from a few months ago. You might recall ChenMed, the senior focused primary care group, came out and said they were not going to prescribe GLPs any longer to their patient population. And the reason was fall risk. Essentially, their members were losing weight, but they were also losing muscle mass and becoming more frail. And as a result, their risk of a catastrophic fall was much higher. I'm not sure where Medicare will shake out on this, but one idea is that maybe they can pair the clinical drug intervention with technology. There's an abundance of technology coming out now around fall risk detection and prevention, whether those are wearable devices or radar-based passive monitoring devices. These kinds of technologies might enable participants to get the benefit of the weight loss drugs while also mitigating some of the downside. I know it sounds far-fetched, but hey, we're seeing the drug makers push for wearables as part of their own messaging. So who knows? Maybe it's not out of the realm of possibility. Our second story, the doom and gloom of ACA math. The Wall Street Journal put out this great analysis, and they took a look at every state's largest ACA insurer and what rate increases they were asking for in 2027 versus 2026. The numbers here are pretty staggering. These plans are asking for double-digit increases a year after asking for double-digit increases. The compounding impact of these premium increases is pushing health insurance further and further out of reach for consumers. Remember, a lot of folks were also getting enhanced subsidies that have gone away. So between the subsidies going away and the premiums increasing, the cost inflation of healthcare for most people is out of control. The Wall Street Journal looked at this individual from South Dakota who was paying $450 a month for coverage. With the subsidies went away. Her premiums jacked up to almost $1,300 a month. So you're talking about somebody who's going from paying $5,000 a year to $18,000 to $20,000 a year. And remember, most Americans cannot withstand a financial emergency exceeding $1,000. And here they're getting one every single month. So you're starting to see the downstream impacts of this. Last week, HCA, the largest hospital system in the country, cut its 2026 guidance. And one of the things they specifically said is that they are going to lose over $1 billion due to payer mix, primarily due to patients who lost coverage on the health insurance exchanges. So look, this is something to continue to monitor as the insurance system writ large continues to bear cost inflation pressure that is pushing so many people to the margins, if not fully out of that system. Our third and final story, you can now bet on the outcome of clinical trials through Kalshi. Kalshi has launched a prediction market on clinical trial outcomes and FDA decisions, so you can literally bet on whether a specific drug hits an endpoint or whether the FDA approves it by a certain date. At a certain level, this is just an extension of how the capital markets around biotechnology work. There's people who want to express a thesis about a particular pipeline or a particular data readout, and they might buy the stock or short the stock or buy or sell options to express that thesis. These prediction markets might help you express more nuanced theses. Maybe you love the legacy portfolio of a big pharma company, but you're skeptical about something in their pipeline, or vice versa. You don't love the company writ large, but you're excited about the potential readout coming from one of their pipeline products. Look, I hear the concerns too. If it's a lot easier to do insider trading in this kind of unregulated part of the market, then it could go and fully taint the very regulated part of the market, especially if people look at whale activity or surprising activity in these prediction markets as a sign of somebody having insider information. But I think it's somewhat inevitable as people look to continue to innovate and offer new financial products around what I continue to view as the most important innovation engine in the U.S. economy today. That's it. That's our show for this week. If you've got something you want me to cover in next week's show, you want to reach out about anything at all, don't hesitate to drop me a line. Thanks so much for watching.